Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today as we count down the end of 2025. It's almost all over. Isn't that crazy?
It's weird. And the days are always like a mush between Christmas and New Year.
That is true.
What do you do with these days?
I guess you work.
Vision board, work, figure out your plan. Are you like a big planner for like your goals for next year, or you kind of just let it go how it goes?
No, I don't plan. I don't know what's going on later today. I know there's a lot I have to do. I'll find out after Rising. I do one thing at a time, then I go, okay, what's next on the event planner agenda thing?
Okay, I'm like the exact opposite. I got like 20 things already listed out that I want to accomplish.
Busy times, busy times. I would like to work a little bit less hard in 2026, but we'll see if that
I'm declaring it the year of ease for us all.
The year of ease?
Yes, it's work effectively, not as hard, but effectively. So when you are working, it's really, really good stuff.
That would be nice.
Coming up on Rising, the New York Times profiled Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sure you guys have seen it, who had some quite revealing things to say about President Trump.
Plus, Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, saying he would support bombing Iran again if it revived its nuclear program.
And in 1998, Americans had some predictions for this year, 2025. We'll see which ones of those came true. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
You can probably guess we're talking about the Minnesota fraud scandal. Most Americans, of course, outraged to learn about this vast amount of fraud committed in that state under Governor Tim Walz's watch. A fraud that involves welfare abuse, Medicare-related schemes, even fake daycare centers that received millions in public funding, even though allegedly they did not enroll kids. Now, independent YouTuber Nick Shirley doing great work exposing this last kind of fraud. His documentary has been viewed 1.5 million times already on YouTube. And it's only been up for 3 days. Now, in the documentary, he visits child care centers and he claims that there are no kids being watched there.
I want to put my son Joey in daycare. Cause I need a spot to put my son Joey.
Yes.
Is this your daycare center?
No, I work there. What's happened?
I just want to put a child in daycare, but all the daycare centers seem to be closed. No one's opening the doors.
You work here?
I was, yeah. What's happened?
Where are the kids?
Yeah?
It says it's licensed for 74 children. Right here, state of Minnesota. Where are the kids? They got paid $1.26 million in fiscal year 2025. It says they have a capacity for 74 children.
When?
Where are the kids? Right here. State of Minnesota website.
This matter obviously needs to be looked into further. Taxpayers do not want public resources being spent on fraudulent charities or schools or medical services. Obviously, we need to hear the child care center's sides of the story, though it does not inspire tremendous confidence when the word learning is misspelled on the sign.
From this daycare center, we headed over to the infamous Quality Learning Center, which actually spells Quality Leering Center on the outside of their sign. That's how blatant this fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
So this is Quality Leering Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open up!
They said they spelled learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children?
That woman screaming at Nick Shirley and his associate. The associate, by the way, has an excellent Minnesota accent. The other person yelling at them, wrongly accusing them of being affiliated with ICE. Nick Shirley is not affiliated with ICE. He's an independent journalist who has questions for child care centers that receive millions of dollars from the government and don't appear to be operational whatsoever. Something everybody should be mad about if things are as they seem. But notorious leftist streamer Hasan Piker, I guess, feels differently. He wrote on X, "I don't know what kind of fraud Somalis in daycares are doing, but I think it's a separate crime to try and storm with a camera into a daycare with kids in it." Piker obviously didn't watch the video because Shirley did not storm into the daycare. He knocked on the front door. Also, the daycare, at least the one with the misspelled learning sign at any rate, didn't have any kids there. There were no kids at that time. That's the whole point. Now, of course, it's nice to see Piker taking a break from praising communist China as his ideal form of government and whitewashing the atrocities being committed there. Remember, this is a guy who has routinely been held up by the mainstream media as a smart, edgy, progressive commentator. The New York Times praised him as perhaps the liberal answer to Joe Rogan because he's muscly. Remember that? Look, if you can't call a spade and say that vast pilfering of public resources is a crime and needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent under the law, then you need to get out of the commentary game. The American people are not going to stand for what has occurred under Tim Walz's watch, nor should they. It's appalling, and it undermines the very foundations of our society as it encourages public mistrust in our institutions, our government, even in our neighbors. No one likes the idea that they are living next to people who will gleefully steal as much money as they can get their hands on. It's wrong, and it's got to stop.
Now we know that.
Would you enroll your kids in the Leering Center?
I can't get over it. I know, it's not right. That's ridiculous. And you know what? It's really important to note that I appreciate independent journalists, and it's really important to allow the Leering Center or whomever else to say whatever their side of the story is, to also track down that these places all receive funding and make sure that that's vetted information, because we have it from the video, but we need to make sure that that all tracks the amounts of money that they were saying. No matter if it's $1, you shouldn't receive funds for something that doesn't actually exist and was just a paper shell to collect COVID funds. We know that fraud was rampant during the pandemic, and it wasn't just Minnesota, but in any rate, it's not the pandemic anymore. And we know that Tim Walz has put forward a task force starting on December 12th to look into stuff like this. A lot of people criticize that, saying December 12th, 2025 is way too little too late. What were you doing all this time? I have a different perspective. I'm critical of his response right now in December, but when I think about his response during the pandemic, he says that he was following federal guidelines that loosened a lot of the restrictions around collecting funds, which opened up more opportunities for fraud. So I'll give that leeway to all governors and leaders during the pandemic that were trying to urgently respond to a dire circumstance. But after you hit like 2022, I think states had to really take some autonomy here to gather their resources and figure out what the plan was, because we got a little bit of a hold on the pandemic that was taking us all over by storm. Everyone wearing a mask, getting different guidelines and not knowing how to move forward, to a more calm version of COVID where people weren't just, on ventilators every single day, and we had updated news where we couldn't even step out of the house. So I think that governors then had a chance to step away from what federal agencies were telling them and decide what looks best for their states, and even push back in instances like this so that we don't have this much fraud committed. I do think that Democrats could easily respond to this in a very direct and serious way and say, one, fraud is wrong. Anybody of Somali descent, anybody of American descent, anybody who committed fraud during the pandemic or afterwards should be prosecuted. The second hand, they should also say President Trump's response to the Somali community as a whole is not the right approach. And that is leading all the way into the side of racism, which we don't want to do. And that's not America. And they should just be able to say those things. They should also be able to say that Minnesota is not the only state that experienced massive fraud during the pandemic, and point out that if we do start opening these investigations, which we should, make sure that we're looking at states across the country and make sure that everybody. And there's been millions and millions of dollars and but millions of dollars associated to people that have been prosecuted already that should continue to be prosecuted. It's not like they can just get away with this forever. But those three things should be on Democrats' list of pointing out, to say that we can talk about all these things and not just run away from it and say, well, maybe there are kids in the daycare. Maybe there are. And then we do need reporting about that.
Well,
but
right.
Don't.
Yes, the information I was looking at this morning suggests to me that it's possible that some of those daycares just didn't have kids there because they actually had been closed down by the state recently. But it looks like, based on the paper trail available, it does look like they were continuing to receive funding despite being closed. So I'm not sure so the continuing to receive funding is probably the more fraudulent aspect.
Right.
But now also people in that video say, well, nobody's ever been in that daycare. Now, who knows? There can be false witnesses who say things that are incorrect.
Like the one screaming ICE, right? It could be
right.
Everyone in the video could be.
And I don't want to just take I don't want to take the word for it of a single. It doesn't matter to me that he's not a professional journalist. That's fine. Amateur journalists can do great work. They can do great work. Going outside the system. So the work should be judged on its own merits. I think it's impressive and it's interesting. It requires obviously further collaboration so that we're not getting taken for a ride. I'm not saying we're getting taken for a ride, but I do want to verify and make sure more. But what I'm learning from the information I'm processing is that it looks like they were still getting the money despite not being open, which is the exact kind of fraud that now the feds are going to come in and investigate, and that seems totally appropriate to me. Coming up on Rising, President Trump's apparently threatening another strike against Iran, and he says the U.S. carried one out in Venezuela as well. We'll be right back.